First things first, acting in Japanese is engi. His name is acting. His name is a play on both engi and ng, which is like the Japanese term for outtakes, no good, ng, which, I mean, is clever, and I hate how clever and amusing that is. So we're introduced to Matsuda Enji, an actor Humagear who is able to play a human character because of a software that hides Humagear earpieces. He's the first Humagear actor, and this drama is being produced with hidden intelligence to try and make the public view of Humagear more favourably. Going into this episode now to talk about, I was wondering if there was anything in the drama itself that they're filming to talk about. I wondered if there was any hidden message or symbolism, so I made a point of really paying attention, and it's really not that hidden at all, really. Enji is playing a human character, Giri, but the character he's playing is the good guy, not just the good guy as in the protagonist. I mean, he seems very do everything by the book, person who cares about his duty above all else. It seems like it's him struggling with carrying out his duty and taking down the person he should be taking down, but in the end, he does what he's supposed to do and doesn't let emotions get in the way. Which is very good little Humagear doing his job, and it bothers me, but given the point of this I do understand. The point is damage control. It's putting a Humagear in a good acting role to make the public feel better about Humagear, so of course that's the kind of role Enji's going to get. But it would be interesting to see what other roles Enji gets in the future, if he's ever allowed to play a grey area character or a full-on villain. That would be interesting. So Giri runs after the assassin Nezumi, who says, "Do you really have what it takes to shoot me?" And Giri says, "I'm settling this with justice and kindness." And Nezumi says, "All you ever see is the world at face value." Giri only sees one side of the coin, he doesn't see the finer details, he just sees assassin, assassin bad, must take down bad assassin. Whereas it's being implied that there's more to this situation that Giri just isn't getting and isn't prepared to try and get. And you know what? If that isn't this series in a nutshell, I don't know what is. I mean, just think about it. Jin is a child who's just witnessed his dad die in his arms and is lashing out like a scared child, and instead of trying to reach out and help the poor guy, Adato just kills him because, well, Jin's been exposed to violence and that makes him bad. Ikazuchi is someone with 2 lives. He's a spy, but he didn't know he was a spy, and he has his whole life with Metsubo Jinrai and his whole life with Subaru, but instead of going into that and letting him deal with all of these conflicted feelings this situation must bring up, instead it's just Ikazuchi bad, Raiden good, a loving brother can't be a spy. I'm not even getting started on Horobi. That's a lie, of course I am. Horobi is just broken free from the Ark. He's had 12 years of the Ark manipulating his mind and telling him what to think, and now he's suddenly on his own with this onslaught of emotions he doesn't understand and no idea what to do with them. And he's trying to escape, and he's getting overwhelmed and he's trying to escape, but instead Izu keeps pushing and pestering and harassing, and so Horobi does what he's always been taught to do, which I seem to recall being a big thing in episode 11, and shoots, because that's how the Ark has always dealt with things. That's the only way Horobi knows how to react. But no, Horobi clearly just hates Izu. Everything about this series is dealt with on a surface level. Nobody goes into anything. As long as Humagear is smiling, it's okay if they're being used and abused, as long as they think they're happy. Obviously all the stuff I just talked about happens later, but this idea of breaking through what you see at face value and actually looking closer could have been amazing foreshadow, because this is a real problem a lot of people have in this series and continue having in this series. Adato refuses to see the other side of the coin, as does Jin and Ikazuchi, who should know better. It's like this series is all about refusing to see the deeper aspects of things without actually addressing that that's what it's about. Anyway, we are 30 seconds into the episode, let's not do this again. So we learn that the drama is called Detective Giri of Duty and Righteousness. It's also been translated as Giri, the Dedicated Officer. I'm not sure which is more accurate, but they both basically mean the same thing, very much the idea of a perfect Humagear. Even though he's playing a human, the human character is still encapsulating this dangerously angelic view of Humagear, how dedicated and good they all are. We learn that it's about a naive rookie detective and a legendary assassin. A naive, inexperienced person who doesn't understand the finer details, constantly going after someone he's been told he needs to kill without stopping to think this is actually the right thing to do. Where are we going to see that again? Do you see what I mean? Just so many parallels that never happen. Something I do find interesting though is that Enji has the leading role despite him being the first actor Humagear and therefore making his debut as an actor alongside legendary and very real actor Owada Shinya. Humagear getting a leading role is great, and the next thing to work towards would be letting Enji play a Humagear. But it's important to realise Enji has been put in this role, he's been put in the limelight so that humans will look more favourably upon Humagear and will let Humagear do things for them. It's not actually about Humagear, it never is. And the thing about Takahashi, I don't know if I've said this before, but I'm saying it now. The thing about Takahashi is he is exceptional at creating characters. Usually the characters who exist for an episode or two are plot points. They exist to move the story along and you don't really think about them after the episode ends. But with 01, throughout the series I keep imagining these minor characters we'll likely never see again because I care that much and they feel so real. It doesn't feel like they came into the story, it feels like we went into theirs. I care so much about Enji that I want him to get more roles because we can see that he is passionate about acting, which is nice. In the episode later, 24 I think, he talks about how acting is his passion and it's really nice to see a Humagear having a passion that isn't helping humans. So I want to know that he's doing okay. I want to see like a poster in the background of a new production he's in. I want to see people getting excited and asking him for an autograph. I just hope he's having a good life. Damn you, Takahashi, and your bloody amazing characters. Fua, who is still injured, which always amazes me when characters are injured in one episode and then proceed to recover in the following episodes. Like, he's all patched up and he has a crutch and I think he was in a wheelchair last time and he's still injured but he's getting better. It's amazing. Anyway, Fua is playing security for this press conference and he says essentially how Humagear saved his life, so fine, he'll do this one thing, but that doesn't mean he's suddenly all deep in love with Humagear, and I appreciate that too. Fua is starting to come down from his anger against Humagear as a whole, but he's not suddenly changed, but it's development, and honestly is Fua the only one in this series to get an actual developed character arc. Fua being saved by Humagear hasn't made him suddenly do a full 180, but it's the start, and honestly it would have been nice to see others develop alongside him, just like Fua and Horobi, which I'll talk about when it's more relevant. Fua and Adato are at two different extreme ends. Fua hates all Humagear and Adato loves all Humagear, and both are extremes and both are bad takes. And while Fua starts to calm down around Humagear, it would have been nice for Adato to come away from his all Humagear are angels viewpoint and for them both to have met in the middle. But I do appreciate that Fua didn't instead go over to Adato's way of thinking like most characters. Fua made the effort to meet in the middle, it's not his fault Adato is staying firm on his end. Then we see one of Owada Shinya's old dramas in which he plays a samurai, and Ansatsu-chan and Jin are watching and they're really into it. And Owada Shinya, this feels weird because he's a real actor playing himself, but Owada Shinya has no doubt been in plenty of dramas that they could be watching right now. I doubt that this is the only drama he's ever done in which he fights people. It's also a big coincidence that they'd happen to be watching this drama given its relevance, that I can't help but wonder who put this on. Who in Metsubo Jinrai put the samurai drama on? Jin teases Ansatsu-chan about how he keeps losing, and Ansatsu-chan says it's not loss, it's growth, which is such a wholesome message. Why are all the nice wholesome messages coming from Metsubo Jinrai? I'm starting to think we're watching from the wrong perspective. If you fail at something, that means you have room to grow, you can't be perfect at everything. I feel like there's something to be said about how Adato is obsessed with the perfect Humagear, but Ansatsu-chan, who hangs around Horobi and Jin and was programmed by Horobi, believes that losing isn't bad, it just means you're learning. Horobi is standing behind them and tells Jin he's found another friend, and oh honey, don't pretend you weren't watching as well. So what have we learned? Jin and Ansatsu-chan watch TV together. Ansatsu-chan believes that loss is growth. But no, Horobi's a terrible dad. Does the software that removes Humagear ear modules in real time come into play again in the future? I genuinely can't remember, but I remember expecting it to, since being able to do it in real time seemed very specific considering CGI exists. And why does it need to be done in real time unless it's going to come up again in the future? Okay, I know it's going to sound like I'm overanalyzing the hell out of this, but that's what I'm here for. Izu explains the software and Fua says sounds handy, and then goes to talk about Adato's new outfit. Fua's comment to Izu was not necessary. It added nothing. No new information, no elaboration. It was one of those things you say to someone more to acknowledge that you've heard them than anything else, like, oh wow, really? Humagear are regularly talked about in front of them as if they aren't there. They often fade into the background while the humans are talking. People generally don't chat with Humagear, but here Fua is engaging in a conversation with Izu that does not need to be had. He's just casually responding with an empty response. He's not quizzing her or implying anything negative like, that sounds handy, giving Hyuga the ability to hide, which Fua would say if that's what he was thinking. But he isn't, he's simply responding to Izu just because. After we get over all Hyuga are bad, no matter what Fua claims, he's very casual with Hyuga going forward. He very much treats Hyuga as he would any human. And that's not always nice, sometimes it's with anger and aggression, but it's equal. He stops viewing all Hyuga as evil killing machines, but neither does he start viewing them as angels or as people who exist to serve humans. They're just people. Fua then teases Adato about his outfit, and I just love them together. They interacted so nicely together and I miss it. I don't dislike Adato easily because moments like these are so nice, and I wish Adato was a character I could enjoy, and I wish we'd have gotten more character driven moments. But it's fine because Fua looks so happy to be here. He seems so happy to have like this unit of people he gets on with. Anyway, we're on set and Owada, Shinya and Enji are filming again, and we're 6 minutes into the episode and I need to stop doing this. They talk about how humans are like a coin. They have a face they show and a face they don't. The point being, people are more than you see on the surface. Going back to the first scene we saw about how Giri just doesn't see the deeper side of things. Like, they're really putting emphasis on this idea. And Nezumi, or Shinya, says how kindness alone won't uncover people's hidden side. And I know when people talk about people's hidden sides, they usually mean their dark sides, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you are presented with someone who you think is dark and evil, but is actually a perfectly nice hacking victim who needs a little more help than just saying nice things to him sometimes and then yelling about how he should know who he is by now. Do you understand why this series infuriates me? It's not like they're not aware. They're saying these things right now and then they go and just... Jin appears and Fua and Yu fight, and we get a repeat of the line about how kindness alone won't uncover people's hidden sides because they had to do the take. But they do not want you to forget this line. Nobody later on in the series is actually then going to do anything more than say a few nice things to the people who need help or anything, but they're still really focusing in on this idea. Of course, kindness alone won't uncover people's hidden sides. You've also got to yell at them and harass them and re-traumatise them. Side note, can we talk about how amazing the makeup is in this episode? Fukusori is playing a corpse and just, wow, the makeup to make him look dead, just amazing. Another thing that really upsets me is how nice Owada Shinya is in this moment. Obviously the fight is happening outside and it causes a fake waterfall, which really spooks Enji. His eyes and earpieces are blinking and he turns around and Owada is still pointing the gun at him and he flinches, and the time he made it look so that the gun prop shot the wall and made it fall. So Owada then turns it away from Enji and puts both his hands up to show Enji that he's okay. How adorable was that? It upsets me because Owada then turns out to be not that nice regarding Hyuga, which does change later, I'll give him that, but why can't people just be nice? On set, they're addressed as Owada-san and Enji-kun, and I know I mentioned before that there does seem to be a pattern of not giving Hyuga honorifics unless it's like Chan, but Hyuga don't seem to get respect for honorifics. They're usually just called their names, or Chan when he should be showing a nurse more respect than that. But in this instance, Enji is making his debut as an actor and he is the youngest person working on this, so I love him being called Enji-kun here on set by who I think is a director. Enji is a young actor, so the director who is older than him is calling him Enji-kun, which is how the honorific works. And I just think that's so nice. He's being addressed, as far as I'm aware, like any human in his position would be. The fact that the director even made the effort to tell Enji that he did well. Like, he's treating him like a person and not just an object to make the job easier. The director starts walking off with Enji with a hand on his back, and I don't know what it is about this series that making me care about minor characters who don't even have a name, but I really like this director person. I really care about this person and I want to know about his life. Even after the series ended, I'm still thinking about minor characters, not even main minor characters. But then Owada Shinya goes to talk to the director while Enji is not there, so thank you for that. He talks about how he doesn't think it's working out. And I know I said that Owada is a little bit not nice about Hyuga, but he had the decency to not talk about this in front of Enji, which is nice, thank you. But he says he thinks Enji comes off as a little forced, a little too robotic, and I'm no expert, but I'm pretty sure he didn't. Like, he seemed perfectly fine, but like I said, I'm not the expert. He says he can't feel the humanity in him, which, I mean, okay, he isn't human, so that's a bit cruel. Personally, I can't feel the humour gear in you. Maybe don't make a humour gear play a human role, then why is that important? Actually, yeah, though, if the whole point is to shift public opinion, why isn't he playing a humour gear? Then the director, who seemed perfectly nice to Enji, agrees with him, but asks him to tolerate it a bit longer. But the director seems regretful when he says this, like he wants Enji to be good and wants to stand by him. I feel like this is more than usual. Usually when I think someone's being nice to a humour gear, I find out it's actually to the benefit of humanity, and we don't actually care about humour gear around here. But the director caring about Enji is important to me. Ansatsu-chan approaches Owada Shinya and asking him to train him, which I think is interesting, how he never takes the time to help Enji, an actor he is working with, until later when he's basically told to. He just gives up on him because a humour gear can't act, but when this stranger he thinks is human comes asking for help, he helps. Oh, but I still need a minute because this entire interaction is adorable. An-chan! Owada Shinya is going to his car and he has the cutest little keychain. Ansatsu-chan is in the car park with a wig and a hat. It's so cute. Telling Owada he wants to be stronger. And the next scene is Ansatsu-chan with 2 tree branches as swords, basically copying Shinya's samurai assassin move from the drama. Owada Shinya recognises these moves immediately, and he's really impressed by Ansatsu-chan's scary expression. Remember Jin earlier in the episode saying Ansatsu-chan would probably win more if he had a scary face like the samurai assassin. And Ansatsu-chan is just the cutest when he receives praise. Anyway, the important part of this scene is about to come. They're running lines together, and Ansatsu-chan is doing Enji's lines, and the interaction goes, "Kid, do you really believe in yourself?" "Well, no, that's why I came here." "Looking for criminal profile hints, huh? You sure? Relying on a vermin for help?" "Yeah, maybe I really am a failure of a detective." And that line, that failure line, that is ad-libbed. And Owada is so impressed, and he's like, "Wow, you can ad-lib too?" And Ansatsu-chan really seems to enjoy the praise again, and says he studied up, and Owada tells him that line was better than the actual script, and he slaps Ansatsu-chan's back and says, "An-chan," so cute. He says, "An-chan, you're way better than that actor humour gear." Owada then asks if he fancies being his understudy. I find a lot interesting about this scene. First of all, Owada thinks Ansatsu-chan, or An-chan, is human. He's a complete stranger to him and does not need to have anything to do with him, but he takes this An-chan under his wing anyway, and trains him thinking he's human. He does not make this effort with Enji, an actual actor who he's actually working with. Ansatsu-chan is learning. He wasn't built with this knowledge, he wasn't installed with this knowledge. We're witnessing machine learning. His algorithms were put in place to learn. The truth is, Enji is making his debut as an actor here. He's never done this before. It doesn't matter how much knowledge you have if you haven't had the practice and you don't have anyone teaching you. There's such an expectation for humour gear to be perfect at everything. It's just assumed that what a humour gear can do when you first meet them, then that's what they do. And they can't progress or learn, it's just, this is how they are, and that's it. When that's not true. Nobody is teaching Enji, it's just, here are your lines, now go say them. And then when people aren't happy with his performance, nobody goes to him and says, "Hey, have you tried doing it this way instead?" Or, "You're sounding a bit wooden, try delivering it like this." And nobody tries to teach him, nobody tries to direct him. It's just, yes, I know this humour gear isn't acting like a human, but please just tolerate him for a little bit. I kind of wish that Owada Shinya had learned that An-chan was in fact a humour gear, and had this bias exposed, because it's glaring. The second thing is Ansatsu-chan says in the beginning that it isn't failure, it's growth. He's very optimistic about failing, because it's true. Either you can never try and remain just static, or you can try and fail and learn from your mistakes and learn what not to do next time. You can't do something well if you don't do it badly first. And Ansatsu-chan's whole thing is that he learns from others. A lot of his movements were learned from Jin, for example. he gets better at fighting the more he fights. So it begs the question, who did he learn that sentiment from? Because that was so wise for someone who really hasn't been that active for very long. I do want to say that Hakuouki was right there and he did not respond to this. He was being very patient during Ansatsu-chan's learning progress, and not once was like, okay, actually you are being kind of crap though. I'm just putting that out there. People like to latch on to those few and far between Hakuouki will be hungry lines. But is he ever, really? He's never visibly angry when things don't go according to plan, and now here Ansatsu-chan is, with his learning algorithms and exposure to Hakuouki and Jin, saying that essentially failure is growth. Anyway, I think it's clear that these lines really awaken something in him. Ansatsu-chan does not believe in himself, he does not feel good about himself, he feels like he's holding the others back, he's not doing his job properly. Despite what he says, he's being heavily affected by the loss after loss, and that is indeed why he went there, to ask Owada Shinya for help, relying on vermin for help while he's asking a human for help. Humans are the ones they're supposed to be extinguishing, and here he is asking one for help. He's so helpless, he needs to rely on a human who really is a failure of a Humagir assassin. That entire interaction really gets to me. These lines being relevant to the plot absolutely played into my expectations that they all would be, but I digress. I mean, they are, I suppose, but they really sounded more akin to the whole feeling of the series. Like, we learn the lesson to not judge a book by its cover and to not be satisfied with only knowing one side, and then spend the entire rest of the series doing just that. Anyway, we then get the line, "Do you not trust yourself?" again over Fua, just after he flashes back to being in the hospital where he was saved by a Humagir. I just really like that bit. It then cuts to Yua for more of the same. She doesn't think she can trust herself, and seriously, I can't stress enough how amazing this episode is at these tiny little moments. Just a few seconds of careful placement to really sell where the character is and how they are. Just those few seconds are so impactful. And because I can't go more than a few minutes without talking about him, this is one of many reasons why I'm so salty about the idea that Hakuouki couldn't get any development whatsoever until the end. Because really, not even a moment like this. Like, you've displayed how incredibly emotional and powerful you can be with just a few seconds of a line playing over someone. Could he not have had a moment or two of that? I'm not asking for a lot, but just small moments like that would have been satisfying, you know. Just the occasional lingering shot or something. Anyway, Owada and NG are doing the scene. Owada then tests NG by trying to get him to ad-lib, which I feel would be a bit cool to do to any young debuting actor without talking about it first, even if he was human. You're setting him up to fail. Encouraging him would have been one thing, but that's not what he's doing. And Ansatsu-chan ad-libbing "I'm a failure" is a lot different than Owada ad-libbing "You're a failure." He then throws a can to NG, which I'm assuming was not supposed to happen because NG is taken by surprise, and I can't stress how difficult sensory motor abilities are for an AI. The fact that you were able to react so quickly and catch it at all was really impressive, NG honey. NG is getting overwhelmed, his eyes and earpieces are flashing, he's struggling for words in a very human-like way, just saying. He then gets really apologetic again in a very human-like way. So I just want to ask, in what way is NG stiff and robotic? Because in real life, he really isn't, so I don't know. If you think he's a bad actor, that has bugger all to do with him being a Humagir. Owada gets frustrated that NG isn't able to ad-lib, which he was never expected to do. I know the cast of Meiwhalien and I basically wrote those characters themselves, but not every actor ad-libs, that's what scripts are for. So Owada gets frustrated and says he knew working with a Humagir was a bad idea, and Ansatsu-chan overhears this and reaches the conclusion that bad Humagir should be eliminated. Owada tells Adato that acting requires a powerful dynamic and conflicting personalities, but with Humagir they don't have enough humanity. Have you ever considered that a Humagir is not human and therefore should not be required to act human? Why is it so important that Humagir act human? I mean, NG is playing a human character and doing a perfectly fine job, but Humagir in general should not have to act human because they're not. NG meanwhile is still off in the corner, bowing, listening to every word. So Ansatsu-chan then attacks NG. I'm saying this now because it's important in the next episode. And before I go any further, as if this video isn't already way too long. Since the theme of the episode seemed to be, or could have been, trying to look for the deeper meaning behind things, and I don't want to be guilty of only seeing one side of the same coin, so I want to try and theorise something. Owada seems genuinely happy to see Ansatz-chan copying his move, which is from his breakout role. Owada says that. But all throughout filming this new detective drama, he really doesn't seem all that interested. I could buy that Owada is starting to lose the passion for acting. I think that could have been a cool parallel given NG voicing later how acting is his passion. I think it could have explained things. He's not anti-humour gear, he's just being cynical. Maybe he wants to work with An-chan because he is acting really passionate, like he used to be, but NG is acting more like he's just doing his job. Maybe Owada used to be passionate about acting, but now it just feels like a job he's stuck in. So seeing NG just doing as he's told without ad-libbing, Owada views it as not being passionate, and his perception of NG reminds him too much of himself. Does that make any sense? I haven't thought this through that much, I don't know if I'm articulating myself well. An-chan reminds him of who he used to be, and NG reminds him of who he is now, and that's why he's more friendly towards An-chan than NG. And deep down, that's what he means when he says NG lacks humanity. I will say I haven't refreshed my memory of episode 11 yet, so I may very well get into it and go, oh, that's why. Anyway, fight happens next, and this video is already longer than the episode itself, so I'm going to speed through it. Jin shows up and tells Ansatz-chan off for attacking their friend, Enji. Ansatz-chan goes after Yua and overpowers her. Fura steps in. Yua asks why he's saving her. He asks why she saved him in the hospital. She says because she wanted to. Fura says same here then. He's fighting for the things he believes in, and Yua is doing the same, and that's good enough for him. I like this a lot because, I mean, it showed Fura out to not be a dick. You know, we have so many characters who are awful towards humour gear, and it's rarely addressed as even being awful in the first place, but here Fura is strongly declaring that this is what he believes in. He's not just being a dick to humour gear because they're humour gear, he strongly believes that fighting humour gear is protecting humans. It shows integrity at the very least. Of course, if Fura was like this for the whole entire series and never changed, then I wouldn't be here defending him, but at this point he is coming away from his all humour gear are killing machines stance and is leaning more towards some humour gear are killing machines, and that's progress. And it implies that with Fura, it doesn't matter as much what you're fighting for, he just admires the fight. As long as you're fighting for what you believe in, that's what matters to Fura. It's okay if they're fighting for different things, it's okay if their goals don't always align. They're both fighting for what they believe in, and that's important. And I thought this was a bloody lovely character moment between the two of them. It's nice to let characters have these moments. But now I've gone more than a few minutes without talking about Horobi, so here we go. Horobi and Fura are such great parallels. Both are fighting for what they believe in. Fura wants safety for humans and Horobi wants safety for humour gear. But both have been manipulated into going at it from extremes. Horobi's desire to protect has been manipulated into kill all humans, and Fura's desire to protect has been manipulated into kill all humour gear. And I wish the two of them had had more time to interact and their story together had gone somewhere, and we'd have returned to this idea of you're fighting for what you believe in. Obviously I don't expect Fura to suddenly go, oh okay, well that's fine then, by all means kill us all. But I just wish they'd have had that moment of clarity of seeing both sides of the coin. Fura realising that they're both doing the same things, how humour gear looks to him must be how humans look to Horobi. And the episode ends with Yua telling Guy the drama is having difficulties, and Guy being like, no, the drama is going ahead smoothly. The drama of Hiden's downfall, that is. And oh, he's such a smooth talker, and I love to hate him.